All right, ladies and gentlemen, sorry I am not here with you, but hopefully this will all make sense and you guys will be able to do your assignment. I am just downstairs. If you need help at 3:30, you can come back. So yeah, today, well, I guess it would have been yesterday when you're watching this video, we solved by looking at the graph and seeing where the two lines cross. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do it all algebraically. And there's two methods, substitution, which we're going to do today, and elimination, which we're going to do tomorrow. So I'm going to teach you both ways. You're going to like one better than the other, and that's okay. But you need to see both ways and you need to practice both ways before you decide which way you like the best. Okay. So this is solving by substitution, and these are the steps. So I'll go over the steps, but they won't make sense until we actually do it. Set one of the equations equal to a single variable. So all that means is, like in this first situation down here, I'm going to set one equal to x on one side and everything else to the other. We've done that a lot before with y-intercept forms, so you should feel a little bit comfortable with that. You're going to substitute, this is where substitute comes in. You're going to substitute the expression that you just made into the other equation. So whatever we found here, we're going to substitute into this equation. We're going to solve for the remaining variable, and then we're going to substitute into the solution from step 3. Okay, that seems like a whole lot of mumbo jumbo, but I promise you it's not that bad. Okay, so let's dive in. So here we have a system. So we have two equations and they're related. You could graph it, but that's going to take some time, and they're not always going to be nice answers. They're not always going to be whole numbers or integers. They might have decimals in them, or they might be fractions. So that's why doing it algebraically is important. Okay, so first thing, step 1 says we are going to set one of the equations equal to a single variable. You can do it in this equation, or you can do it in this equation. And I want you to work smarter, not harder. And so when I look at, out of these two, I'm going to look at this one because the x is already by itself. It has no coefficient. I don't have to divide anything through. See, this one has a 3 on it. The y has a 4. And you don't have to solve for x. You could solve for y. But just this little variable here has nothing attached to it. So this one I'm going to rearrange. So this is the one I'm going to rearrange, and I'm going to set it x equals to everything else. So I want x on one side and everything else on the other side. So we have x plus 2y equals 2. So I want to move the 2y to the other side, so I have to subtract 2y from both sides. So x is equal to 2 minus 2y. Now you could flip that around and say x is equal to negative 2y plus 2. These things are the same. All right, give you a second to copy that down. I think I'm just going to stick with this one if that's okay. Because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my negative sign. I'll just forget to put it in. Okay, so that's step 1. That's step 1. So step 2 was to take this and substitute it. So if I rearrange this equation, I have to substitute it in. So this would be step 1. And this one I use for step 2. So what you just did was you said x has the same value as negative 2 plus 2, or 2 minus 2y. So what you're saying is instead of x, this is an equivalent expression. So I'm going to take this, and the other equation is 3x plus 4y equals a negative 4. So what I'm going to do is instead of writing x, I'm going to substitute this in. So I'm going to put this in where I see x. So we know that the mathematical operation between the two, the 3 and the x, is multiply. So I'm going to use some brackets here. I'm going to say 3 times 2 minus 2y, and then plus my 4y equals a negative 4. So now what you see has happened is that in step 2, the only variable I have is y. So now I can go ahead and I can solve for y. That's step 3. So I'm going to take this equation right here and I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to rewrite it just so I don't lose any pieces of it. So I'm going to leapfrog my 3 through there. So I have 6 minus 6y plus 4y equals a negative 4. So I'm going to combine my terms if I can. So I'm going to combine these two because they're both y's. So I'm going to have 6, and negative 6y plus 4y should leave me with a negative 2y equals negative 4. So this is just your basic algebra that you did in grade 9, grade 8, whatever. I want to get y by itself. So I'm going to move that 6, so that means I got to subtract 6 from both sides. So I'm going to have negative 2y equals a negative 10. So the operation between the 2 and the y is multiply. And you guys know that, so you don't feel like you have to write that down. So the opposite to multiply is divide by a negative 2. And y is equal to a positive 5. Okay, so we found our y value. Okay, now this is step 4. So step 4. Now that we know what y is, we know the value of y, we can go back up to this one, or this one, doesn't really matter. Maybe I'll just get rid of that because I keep going to it and that's not what I want. We're going to go back up to the original equation that we created here, and we're going to substitute in the value of y. And we know that y is 5. So we are going to put that in. So x is equal to 2 minus 2 times 5. So x is equal to 2 minus 10. So x is equal to negative 8. So just like on the graph, we had our x and our y values. So our x is worth negative 8 and our y is worth 5. So a lot more work than just looking at the graph, but a lot less work than if I had to make you graph it. Okay. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead, pause, make sure you get all those steps down. All right, I'm going to flip the page. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and solve this system. Now again, we're going to work smarter, not harder. Step 1 is to rearrange to a single variable. So again, that y is just by itself, just like in the other system. The x is by itself, so I'm going to rearrange. So this one's my step 1. So I'm going to rearrange this one. So y on one side and everything else on the other side. So I have 4x plus y. And this is step 1. I'm just going to keep labeling them just so that we are following along. So I'm going to minus the 4x from both sides. So I have y equals 5 minus 4x. And again, if you write it the other way, no problem. That's fine. No big deal. Okay, so step 2 involves the other equation. So if you rearrange this one, then you must use the other equation for step 2. So that's your 2x minus 4y equals 7. So what you did was you said that instead of writing y, this is equal to it. So I'm going to substitute that in where I see the y. So that's going to be 2x minus 4 times 5 minus 4x equals 7. So again, as you notice, this is only x in this one. So we're just going to solve for that one. So I'm going to go to step 3. Step 3 is solve. So I'm going to have 2x minus 4 times 5 minus 4x equals 7. Okay, so I'm going to leapfrog that through. So it's going to be minus 20, but it's like a negative 4. So negative 4 times by a negative 4x is going to be a plus 16x equals 7. So really important you pay attention to your positive negatives here. I'm going to combine any like terms. So I'm going to combine this one and this one. So I get 18x minus 20 equals 7. So again, we are going to isolate that x. All right, so I'm going to add 20 to both sides. So 18x is equal to 27. Divide by 18, divide by 18. Now, your first instinct may be to, oh, I'm just going to go to my calculator. Let me grab my handy-dandy calculator, and I'm going to get a decimal. And if I do that, I get 1.5. Not bad. You can totally use 1.5. There's nothing wrong with it. But I'm going to reduce my fractions. So I'm going to take 9 out of both of them. And that's going to leave me with 3/2. Which is equivalent to 1.5. So at this point, I'm okay with whichever one you use. But fractions, I would get comfortable using them, especially if you're going into the pre-cal stream. We do use fractions. And you see, using slope, that fractions are helpful. Okay, so step 4. Step 4 is where we go back to the equation we created in step 1. So y equals 5 minus 4x. And we know the value of x here. We know the value of x. So y equals 5 minus 4 times 3/2. And that's like saying 4/1. So y equals 5 minus 12/2. And I can reduce that fraction. That's 6. So 5 minus 6. So y is equal to a -1. So my x is worth 1.5. And my y is worth -1. Okay. Good job, everybody. Take a minute, make sure you get all the steps copied down. Make sure you know where the parts are coming from. Like this one comes from all the way over here. So if you need to highlight it the same color, or I guess maybe I should put an arrow going the other way because we're bringing it over here. Make sure you're paying attention to the steps. Okay, so of course there's always word problems with everything that we do because that just wouldn't be fun if it wasn't. So this one is a little bit of 7.1 because we have to create the system, and then we have to solve the system. Okay, so that population question we did yesterday, we could solve it algebraically, which would be much more nice than graphing it. So Nuri invested $2,000, part of an annual interest rate at 8% and the rest at an annual interest rate of 10%. After 1 year, the total interest earned was $190. How much money did Nuri invest at each interest rate? Okay, this one's a little bit weird because it's money. And although money is usually the thing that works the easiest, this one's a little bit different because we're dealing with interest rates. So, I'm going to say let E equal the amount of money invested at 8% and T equal the amount of money invested at 10%. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so I'm just thinking out loud here. You know what? I think maybe we pause on this question right now. I kind of want to go over it with us together, but maybe I'll come back to it in a second. So let's just flip the page, and I promise I'll come back to it, so don't freak out. Oh, let's do a system with fractions in it. Oh, everything is just hard today. Everything is just hard. Okay, so what we're going to do here, this one's nice and, well, not nice and easy because it's fractions. It looks really hard, but this is kind of like what we did when we were putting it in general form. What you want to do is you want to, in this situation, remove fractions by multiplying by the LCD, the lowest common denominator. So what is the common denominator between 2 and 3? And the easiest way to do that is to multiply them together. So we're going to say for this equation, our LCD, sorry, not a negative, our LCD is 6. So, because that's just 2 times 3. All right, so that's the thing that both 2 and 3 divide evenly into. So what I want you to do is I want you to multiply every term by 6. So I want you to 6 here, 6 here, and 6 here. Now remember, this is like saying 6 over 1, and that might help you if you write it as a fraction. Oh, that looks terribly messy, terribly messy. So this would be 6 over 2x plus 12 over 3y minus equals negative 6. And so we can simplify these now. We can simplify these. So this is 3x plus 4y equals a negative 6. That's so much nicer to work with. So this one here and this one, they're the same. They're equivalent. They have the same values, okay? So we're going to do that again. I'm going to use a different color. We're going to look at equation number 2 here. So the LCD for this one, what's 4 times 3? That would be 12. So we're going to take all the terms and we're going to times them by 12. So 12, that's like saying 12 over 1, 12 over 1, 12 over 1. So I'm just going to move this over here because I'm kind of over room. So we're going to have 12y equals, I might have just done this for no apparent reason. You guys are going to love me for this. That's going to be 12 over 4x minus 60 over 3. So we're going to have 12y equals 3x minus 20. Okay. I might have done this for no apparent reason, but it's okay. We're smart people. We can figure this out. So you see that none of them are equal to a single variable. None of them are equal to a y or an x. And the reason why I said we're smart people and maybe I did this for no reason, this was already equal to y. So if I rearrange this again, I'm right back to where I started. So everything divided by 12. And where y equals 3 over 12x minus 20 over 12. And if I reduce those fractions, that will be 1 over 4x minus, what can I take out of here? I can definitely take a 2. Can I take a 4? I definitely can take a 4. So it's going to be minus 5 over 3, which is exactly where I started. Wah, wah. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it's always good practice. Okay, so now we're ready to start our steps, because this one is rearranged. This one's rearranged. I feel like I'm doing Christmas colors. So step 1, we did. This was step 1. We rearranged it. So now over here, we are on step 2. Step 2. All right. And step 2 is we're going to substitute this into the second equation. So we're going to have 3x plus 4y equals negative 6. So we're going to take this part of the equation and we are going to put it in where we see y. So 3 times x plus 4 times 1/4 x minus 5/3 equals -6. So you can't forget your other piece of it. So this is like saying 4/1, so I'm going to go through and leapfrog this in. So we're going to have 3x plus 4/4x minus 20/3 equals -6. Okay, well we can write 4/4 as 1, so this would be 3x plus 1x minus 20/3 equals -6. So we have 4x minus 20/3 equals -6. So I want to get x by itself because our goal, we are moving on. This is step 3. I didn't label it. Step 3 is where we're going to solve for that variable. So we're going to add 20/3 to both sides. So we have 4x equals -6 plus 20/3. Now, some of you are saying, Ms. Scallion, can I just use decimals at this point? And I would hate for you to use decimals because this will give you a repeating decimal. So I'd like you to stay in fractions. I know that's a lot to ask. So this is a denominator of 1. We know when we're adding fractions together, they have to have a common denominator. So I'm going to times the bottom by 3, and I'm going to times the top by 3. So we're going to have 4x equals -18/3 plus 20/3. So we have 4x equals 2/3. Okay, it's getting complicated now, folks. It's getting complicated. So we want to get rid of that 4. So we're going to divide by 4. And we have to divide this side by 4. Okay. So I don't know where I should go. Maybe I'll go up here, because I still have another step to do. So I'm going to have x equals 2/3 divided by 4. Now in fractions, this is like saying 4/1. We don't divide fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal. So x is going to equal 2/12, and we can reduce that to 1/6. That's fun. Okay, that was a lot of work because that was a lot of fraction work. So there's my x value. So now I'm going to move on to step 4. So I'm just going to slide up for a second. So step 4 is the final step. We're going to substitute that x back into the equation we made in step 1. Okay, so this is step 4. This is why I gave you a whole piece of paper to do it, and that's why your assignment's short. Step 4, so y equals 1/4 x minus 5/3. So y is equal to 1/4 times 1/6 minus 5/3. So y is equal to 1/24 minus 5/3. Now, remember when we said when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we need a common denominator. So the common denominator is 24. I know I can times this 3 by an 8/8. So we're going to have y equals 1/24 minus 40/24. So y is equal to a -39/24. Okay. Oh, sorry guys, couldn't see that. Again, pause the video, go back if you need to stop. If I'm going too fast, it's really hard to gauge my pace when nobody's in the room with me. So I know I'm moving a little bit quicker, and you guys probably would have questions as we go along. So I'm going to hop back to that word problem. Okay, I'm flipping the page. I'm going to hop back. Again, pause the video if you need to. So here we are here. And so my first equation is, it's going to be E plus T equals the total number I've invested, which is 2,000. Okay. The next equation is going to be Now I'm going to change 8 into a decimal. So that means I'm going to take 8% and I'm going to divide it by 100%. So that's going to give me 0.08 times E plus 10% converted to a decimal is going to be 0.1 T equals, and the interest I earned was 190. All right, so I've created my system, and I'm just going to go ahead and follow the steps. So step 1, obviously, this is the easiest one to reread. Shoot. Holy Hannah. Sorry, something just fell off my shelf, folks. So, geez Louise. Okay, that rattled me. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to rearrange this equation. Again, we're working smarter, not harder. So, I don't know, I can rearrange this one to E, let's say. So, that's going to be subtract T from both sides. So, E is equal to 2,000 minus T. Okay, so that was step 1. And again, you guys don't have to label them. I'm just labeling them so we can keep track of them. Step 2 is taking this part of the equation and we're going to substitute it in where we see E. So we're going to have 0.08 times 2,000 minus T plus 0.1 T equals 190. So we're going to go ahead and leapfrog stuff in. So I'm going to get my handy dandy calculator out. And I've got 0.08 times 2,000 is 160 minus 0.08 T plus 0.1 T equals 190. So I'm going to combine like terms. So again, if you have to do that in your calculator, that's not a big deal. So we're going to subtract these. So I've got 0.08, and that's a negative 0.08 plus 1. Sorry, not plus 1, plus 0.1. And that's going to give me 160 minus 0.2. No, sorry, that's a positive. I'm all rattled because that thing fell off the wall. I'm all a mess. Okay, so I want to get the T by itself, so I'm going to minus 160 from both sides. And I'm going to have 0.02 T, run out of room here, equals 30. I'm going to divide by 0.02. So in this situation, decimals are really handy. And T is going to equal 1,500. Okay, so nice and easy. We found out what T is. And so then so that was step 2. This is step 3. I keep mixing step 2 and step 3 together. Step 3 is where we solve. So step 3 is getting it to this. And then step 4 is taking the information that we know and solving it back into that step 1 equation. So we're going to have E is equal to 2,000 minus T, which is 1,500. So E is equal to 500. Now we're dealing with money here, so we're going to put some units of measure. We're going to put the dollar signs on it. And there we go. So I'm going to invest 500 at 8%, and I'm going to invest 1,500 at 10%. So those are my answers for that. Again, take a minute if you need to pause the video. Make sure you get everything. Sorry, my fingers are in the way. Yeah, and if you have any questions, obviously I'll be back tomorrow, or if you want to stop by at 3:30.